Hey everyone, welcome to CKAMAs. Tonight's guest decided to venture off the traditional hedge fund route in pursuit of acquiring a skill set that would allow him to have a lasting impact on the world. Having taken a shot at essentially an online flyer he found on Hacker News, he would go on to be a part of Dev Bootcamp's early cohort along other ambitious and driven visionaries, including the CEO and founders of Hack Reactor and HackBright. Now he enables students learning to code and gives them some of the best curriculums on the internet and introduced the very first income share agreement in the space, allowing even more people to pursue their dreams of breaking into tech. Please turn your cameras on, unmute yourselves, and help me in welcoming the industry disruptor for how educators take responsibility for their outcomes, App Academy's founder and CEO, Kush Patel. Welcome, Kush.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Also, after this, can I talk to you, Melvin, about hiring you as like a hype man?
Yeah, of course. No, I really love a lot of the things that you've been able to kind of actuate in the world. And I actually kind of wanted to start off with kind of like, so you kind of ventured off of this whole hedge fund route in pursuit of kind of acquiring the skill set of, coding. I kind of wanted to hear that journey kind of real time of like when you came across this flyer, what really prompted you towards like wanting to code in general, and then some of the struggles along the way that you feel a lot of folks could really benefit from hearing.
Yeah, so, to actually go back to the first time I tried to learn how to code, it was probably when I was like 12 or 13, and I was in a library and I picked up a book on like C++ for dummies or something. I think a week later I returned the book and I was like, gee, this is not for me. Like, this is way too hard. I don't understand what's going on. Like, I don't understand how to do this. The book's not that well written, whatever. So, fast forward a few years, I was in college. I took a few classes that were, programming classes as well. So, they were okay at teaching me how to code. They didn't really get me very far, to be honest. They didn't get me motivated at all of like why I'd want to learn how to code. We couldn't really build anything that was interesting. It's like these little toy projects that really, they solve like a math problem or something. And I'd be like, this is not something that I'm excited about building or contributing to the world. So fast forward a few years after that, I was working at the hedge fund and I started to teach myself how to code because I noticed that I was doing a lot of like data analysis, a lot of like spreadsheet stuff and wanted to like automate the analysis and, automate like various tasks of, like automating the analysis, printing that document so it would be ready for my boss at like 6 a.m. when he came in. So I wouldn't have to come in that early. So that was when I like first saw the power of coding, where I was like, whoa, shit, like this can actually make me or help me do my job a lot better or faster. That was when I like really kind of discovered like the magic or the power of coding, and how much of a superpower it could be, even any field outside of software engineering, right? So even if you're not doing software engineering, I think it's like this really useful skill where you're like, oh, I'm a salesperson or I'm a finance person, whatever, but I can code, and like even coding a little bit makes you that much better at that kind of job. So doesn't obviously apply to every job, but applies to a lot of them. So that was kind of my background. Once I quit my job at the hedge fund, I was looking for a way to kind of get back to San Francisco. So that hedge fund was in Bombay, actually halfway across the world. And I came across this flyer that what was on Hacker News, where essentially the pilot course, the founder of Dev Bootcamp posted a posting that was like, hey, come down, I'll teach you how to code. I'm helping a friend. I'm going to teach a friend, so I might as well teach like 10 more people. So I thought, hey, this is kind of an awesome way to just break into tech, break into software. I don't know if I want to be a software engineer, but I think I probably want to start a tech company. But I'd heard about a lot of CEOs that had started tech companies, but that they didn't know how to code. So we would just go into the ground because they didn't really understand like what the actual product that they were making, right? So that was actually the initial reason why I wanted to go to Dev Bootcamp. And once I got there, it was awesome. I had such a great time, and learning how to code all day long was kind of a dream for me. It was like a really fun thing to do, which, just as a side note, I think is really important to kind of, I'm guessing most of the people on this call have probably gone past this step, but just doing enough of it yourselves, you'd like figure out like, do I actually like this enough to do this for like many hours a day? Because I think in doing Dev Bootcamp, I actually figured out that I really enjoyed learning it, but it wasn't the right choice for me for a career. Like, I don't know that I would enjoy being a software engineer for like 10, 20 years. Like the way some people's brains work, it's totally an awesome career and can be a lot of fun. Not for everybody though. And I think that's one thing that we urge our applicants to kind of figure out early for themselves. But yeah, so yeah, I that's when I really got hooked and became actually like competent with software at that point, was going through that Dev Bootcamp class.
Yeah, and I know that a lot of people kind of have this this worry that, you know, App Academy has kind of like a pretty high barrier to entry. There's, you know, it's pretty selective. What would you say to people that kind of are worried about that? How would you have them approach that?
Yeah. So yeah, no, so our acceptance rate is something like, I don't know, 5% or something. But I think that's really like a scary statistic that once you dig in a little bit deeper, it's not at all so scary. So a lot of that 5% really comes from the fact that we ask people to complete a lot of stuff during the application process. So we say, hey, you know, finish this prep work and then, you know, kind of do the coding test and do the technical interview. A lot of people just don't push through the process, right? So they just don't finish. So, you know, of the applications that start, we just accept a, you know, smaller amount of them because not everybody's kind of finishing that process. And once you actually look at, you know, what the people that are actually finishing that process, that acceptance rate looks like 20-30%. So it's a lot higher, and a fair amount of that actually is we're weeding out people where you know, we have a non-technical interview that we call the no asshole kind of, you know, interview. So that weeds out like half of it. So if you're actually talking on like a technical basis, it's like the people who actually finish the application process, apply, you know, make it through that non-technical bar, it's like closer to 50%. So a lot of it's just putting in the time and the work. And we've designed the prep work in a way where, you know, if it doesn't work out, we've tried to make it so that it's worth your while, so that you become a stronger programmer in just doing the prep work, so that it's still kind of a win for you just to go through that process. That's kind of how we've tried to design it.
Yeah, it seems like I also noticed that you definitely left an answer to one of these as well. So people that are on this call could go ahead and see like another side of it on the discussions board. And you mentioned that, in short, it kind of really is about putting in that time and making sure that you're mastering that prep work. So doing that like due diligence, going and completing all of those. So for the people that are on this call right now, do we have any questions for Kush at the moment?
No, sir.
All right. So Kush, I'd love for you to kind of talk about certain differences between your like online and in person. What kind of like there's a lot of nuance behind like the experiences behind those things, as well as like the level of preparation that you kind of get, you know, learning to code, like being prepared for the workforce. Like, can you just talk a little bit about your thoughts on that?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So kind of at a fundamental level, we really think of the in-person course and the online courses as very similar. They're both kind of right now full-time courses that take you from no experience to entry-level software engineer, and both have kind of best-in-class outcomes, best-in-class ratings. There are a few differences though. So one is that the online course is a little bit slower, a little bit longer. It's 5 months versus 4 months for the in-person. The in-person curriculum is a little bit different. So the in-person curriculum is a Rails, Ruby on Rails backend, while the online course is a full stack JavaScript and Python backend. So you get 2 backends there. Both teach all the other core like web technologies. So SQL, Git, HTML, CSS, React, Redux. Or some other differences. The tuitions are basically the same. There's an income share agreement option for both of them. You know, it's the in-person, it's a 1-year payback for the income share agreement. That's probably the biggest difference, versus the online, it's a 3-year payback. So you just get longer. It's a smaller amount every year, but ends up being roughly the same amount of money. The median salary is a little bit different. So, the median salary coming out of our San Francisco class, about 110,000, about 95,000 out of our New York class, and a little bit over 80,000. So I think like 83,000 for our online students. So that's mostly cost of living stuff. So, just people finding jobs kind of across the US versus San Francisco and New York makes sense. Actually, another key difference here is that lately we've seen that the online students from our class are able to get jobs significantly faster than the in-person students. So we're excited to see that. That's pretty rare in higher ed to see the online students actually succeed at a higher rate than the in-person students. So we're excited to see that. We did a lot of pre-work. We spent like a year and a half building that online class. So I think we're really seeing those effects. But in that median salary, pretty high compared to some of the other programs kind of out there.
Yeah, and as well as like the strength of your online program, could you talk about what App Academy Open is, and like that's pretty strong as well. Do you mind touching a little bit on?
Yeah, so we've done something that I actually don't think any other coding bootcamp has done. Which is that we put our entire curriculum online for free. So just as a way to kind of give folks a chance to say, hey, if you want to find out if coding is for you, if you want to get a sense of if App Academy is the right thing for you, check out this curriculum. If you don't have the time, the kind of flexibility to take App Academy, that's fine. You can finish this curriculum by yourself and get a job as a software. As a software engineer, we've had several students. It was fairly recently launched, but about a year, a little bit less than a year ago, and folks that have finished it, found jobs as software engineers, never paid us anything. So they kind of go out in the world, and they I think they're brand ambassadors for us. So we're happy about that. We're happy that we were able to kind of get them where they wanted to be. But that's a resource that I highly recommend. A lot of students that are in other boot camps use our curriculum as like a supplement for their boot camp. So it's not obviously the same as kind of going through the bootcamp, but it's there if you whatever reason don't end up taking App Academy. I still recommend it. So check it out.
As far as like the experience that App Academy kind of gives and curates for its students, do you mind talking a little bit about the mentorship that you guys all provide your students? Like what really is different between App Academy and say all of the other boot camps that are out there?
Yeah, so a lot of it is just that iteration that we've had. So the program's been around for 8 years now, and we've been able to learn a lot in terms of how that curriculum is most effectively delivered, what guidance to give students on particular problems, right? There are many years of notes about like, okay, the students will get stuck on this specific part of this problem, and this is how to lead them towards the solution in a way that gives them just enough of the answer so that they're still learning, so that they still know how to kind of solve this problem when they see in the wild, but gets them kind of unstuck, right? So that kind of level of depth and experience, I think, really comes to bear, and makes it so that our students can kind of move, much more quickly. The other aspect that I'll mention here that kind of differentiates the App Academy experience from other ones is that, as you mentioned, we are a little bit more selective. We do ask more from the students kind of upfront, and that's for us, I'd say a way of knowing that you're serious about it, but also ensuring that the other students in the class are just as serious as you are, right? So there's some students that take these kinds of classes, and they're students that they don't need this to succeed. This is something that they're kind of doing, because they want to pick up another skill. It's not, they're not really taking it as seriously as somebody who like needs this to work because they're looking for like a total different career, right? And those kinds of people that are taking it that seriously want other people like that, because it's this community of support and accountability that pushes you forward. So we're really looking for that in that application process. So that's another thing that I think does push people to these higher outcomes, because it's kind of this collective group effort towards this better outcome.
Yeah. So what other kind of characteristics in your applicants, or just in general, since you've had a ton of students like coming in through App Academy, what have you noticed kind of differentiates those that really do succeed and go like above and beyond from those that don't, or kind of struggle a lot?
Yeah. So a few things. So one, one is kind of the just the attitude that they have, right? There's some people that they hit a wall a few times and they give up, and then there are other ones that kind of lean in, right, and just say like, no, I'm going to figure this out. Like I can figure this out. I may not know, the answer to it like right now, this second, but I can figure it out. Thousands of people have before. There's help here. I can do it, right? So that just the attitude is a big one. Another is asking for help, right? So what you're paying for in a boot camp is that help, that support of the not only the instructors but the other students that are around you, the alumni, going out and actively asking for help. Yeah, I get it. It can be kind of awkward or scary. Yeah, that totally makes sense. But trying to put yourself in that position of just asking for help, you'll often find that somebody, not that often enough people want to take the time to. I mean, let's say outside of the instructors, but even the fellow students and alumni want to take the time to explain something to you personally in depth in a way that until you understand it. So that's a big piece. Let me see other things. Yeah, I'd say those are the big ones that kind of jump to mind.
So in terms of also, since because like the job search is inherently like a part of that process, what would you say like App Academy does in particular that kind of really empowers their students to really like go out and take these jobs?
Yeah. So it's a mixture of things, right? But it all starts at the income share agreement, which is that like we lose thousands of dollars if you don't find a job. So we're really like incentivized to help you find a job. So and that means everything from the technical piece to the non-technical piece. What we found over the years is that non-technical piece just as important as that technical piece. So and what do I mean by that non-technical piece? How do you go in and present yourself? How do you write the resume? How do you go and do the whiteboard? Like it's we have a lot of people, they've never had a office job before. That's really fine. We're set up to kind of train from kind of soup to nuts of, hey, this is how you do every piece of what you need to do on the non-technical side to kind of make it into that startup or tech company or whatever you're trying to break into. So so that's a big piece of it. Another big piece is the alumni and the employer partnership. So here, we've had over 3,000 alumni. They're at 1,000 different tech companies, but maybe most importantly, a lot of those folks are senior engineers, directors of engineering, VPs of engineering. They're in charge of hiring. They're in charge of hiring like large engineering teams, and that's a huge foot in the door right there. So even if it's not like, hey, we're going to connect every like graduate to the VP of engineering, we have a direct line to those people, and they tell us like, this is what we need to know, and like, okay, give us the top 5 or 10 students that look like that have this kind of particular skill set or whatever, right? So that's a big kind of help, and that's been something that's really kind of built up over time. Lastly, I'd say is the brand, right? So we've been kind of in the market long enough and built up the reputation of we graduate quality students that when your resume comes in and it has that App Academy name on it, that actually makes a difference, right? Versus the whatever newer school or school that just accepts like a much broader kind of pool of folks. So again, it's something that helps you not only for your first job, but we've seen alumni come back and give the feedback of like, hey, this was actually helpful to get my like second or third job. So
yeah, it also I definitely wanted to delve into kind of your intrinsic motivations, because it seems like you, just like what we do here at Career Karma, we're essentially just geared towards trying to empower people to be able to achieve more, do more, right, dream more. And I kind of wanted to hear your take on that, as well as like maybe one of your favorite stories of like outcomes that have come through App Academy, just to give us kind of an idea of like the certain things that you've kind of dealt with.
Yeah. So yeah, there are a few things that kind of motivate me. So like day to day, it is just those stories of like people that, yeah, come from a background where it's not a natural fit for them to jump into software engineering, right? So we've had homeless people, we've had single working moms, the whole gamut, right, of all the kinds of various kinds of backgrounds and no GED, all that stuff, right? Yeah, like many of those folks, right? So and there's I'd say probably my favorite of theirs. We had this guy who, he was a truck driver before. He decided he wanted to make this change in his life, and the guy just hustled like nothing. Like he worked so hard that everybody we he got to the top of his class. We hired the top of the class people as kind of junior TAs to kind of help out with the curriculum. He worked again so hard there, just people on the team called him like the machine. He then went on to like a software engineering job like a few months later. Again, that was like his nickname, because the guy just put in the work like to a crazy degree, where he was like, no, I don't have any other option. Like, I've got to make this change, and I've got to make it fast and hard, because I've got like people depending on me. Like, I've got family, like so, and that's one of those things that like makes the hair on the back of your neck kind of stand up. Right. So, that was just, really, really awesome to see. But, yeah, no. And the other thing that I wanted to quickly mention here is that, when I was learning how to code, like, I got constantly frustrated by the lack of resources, the poor quality resources, the fact that there were a bunch of beginner things out there and a bunch of like expert things out there, but nothing that stitched them together. That's why our curriculum is online for free, right? It's to scratch that itch that I had back then, where it was like, how do you, like, there should just be things online where, just the same way that, there many other fields that there's just this stuff available online for free. It should be accessible. And yeah, there'll be schools that, and we're happy to offer like, great teachers and great community and brand, et cetera. But like, that curriculum should just be out there for folks. So, that's as much of just like a motivation, like giving back type thing as anything else for us. So, yeah.
So if this like App Academy Open is kind of online and available and free, what would be the real incentive to kind of enroll in App Academy and kind of get that different experience?
Yeah. So, a few things. So one is that the main difference in curriculum or content there is that there's no real way for us to give the assessments kind of online in a way that kind of protects, the fact that, the really kind of the student experience of like getting feedback on the assessment, right? We'd just be like, hey, here's a test, and like, we can't grade it because we don't have the bandwidth to like grade all these thousands of tests that are coming in. But so that's a piece that's not there. That's a relatively minor piece, to be honest. I don't think that's going to stop anybody from like learning. If you know the content, if you learn the content, you build the projects, you'll be able to pass the assessments. That's not really a big deal. But really, I'd say it's just the accountability, the structure, the support. I know, personally, this curriculum would have been a great help to me. It would have gotten me far, but I ultimately would have chosen, the classroom experience. I learn best when there are other people around me, when there are, that structure kind of exists. And it's a lot faster, right? So if you do the math on it, it's like, hey, you could self-study, it would take 12 months, but if you, take the course and get a job in, 6 months, call it, then, that's like anywhere from like $40,000 to $60,000 of like wages as a software engineer, right? So it clearly pays for itself like twice over App Academy. So, and again, there's no risk there, right? So if it's not working for you, then like, cool, I'm not gonna charge you anything. So, yeah, that's what I'd say.
Yeah, it looks like we also have a question in the audience. I think that the Zoom name is a little finicky. It's like Z55. Do you want to go ahead and just unmute yourself and ask your question?
Yes. I just wanted to let you all know I'm very interested in the class. But I had an incident with one of the reps that contacted me, and I was on an emergency call. For me, if I say I'm on an emergency call, I need to get off the line, can you call me back? I got a little annoyed because they wouldn't get off the phone. So I actually had to hang up on them, honestly. But I am interested in doing this class. So I just wanted to let you know. They can be aggressive, but sometimes when there's situations, you need to listen. You know what I mean?
Yeah, sure. No, that's good feedback. That's not cool. I think they if you had an emergency, they should let you go. Yeah, no, agreed.
So speaking of emergencies, it seems like there's been a rather bizarre time, right, where we currently are experiencing something that not really been seen before. What kind of resources does App Academy kind of provide people while they're kind of going through this whole COVID-19 scenario?
Sorry. Do you just my line cut out? Do you mind repeating the question?
Yeah, no worries. So I was just talking about how we're in a very interesting time where we just haven't before seen like a pandemic like this, um, like to this caliber. I was wondering what kind of resources or things that App Academy is doing to essentially address that.
Yeah, sure. So, a couple of things. So, one is that the bootcamp prep course that we have, it's usually we don't let students kind of credit that against the upfront tuition, but we are doing that kind of indefinitely during the COVID-19 time. We're also making a online version of our bootcamp prep class, which is just like the content only version. We're making that freely available. That's usually like $1,000. So we're yeah, hoping that this kind of helps people, learn the basics of programming. Hopefully, it helps them get into boot camps. Hopefully, App Academy. But if not, then it's hopefully helpful to folks as they look for career transitions. During this difficult time where just so many people are facing employment challenges.
Judith, did you want to go ahead and ask your question?
Yeah, thank you, Kush, for the talk. So I don't know if you can hear me. Can you hear me?
Yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right. So my question is about like concerning the COVID issue. So some of the people lost jobs. So for somebody who's in a boot camp, do you have any programs that could help them like to earn a living, like maybe an in-land program or something like that to help them get a job as they are doing the boot camp?
Yeah. So you're saying like a part-time course
Yeah.
or
No,
okay.
no. Is there a way you can help them maybe find job opportunities or something that can help them to concentrate on their boot camps because they're earning a living, or if you can help them like find jobs as they so that they can concentrate on the boot camp, because we have some boot camps that help you. They they have the living stipend, and they have others that have the earn and learn program.
Mhm.
So what is Up Academy doing to help students?
Yeah, so there are a few things kind of along these lines. Yeah, one of them is currently live, and there are two other ones that we're kind of working on at various stages. So the one that's live right now is that we do have various kind of work opportunities for students. Now it is a competitive process to kind of get those jobs, so they're not unlimited numbers of jobs here. But as I mentioned, that kind of TA program where students are able to kind of pause their learning for a little bit, earn some income, and then resume learning, and then kind of hop forward in that way. That's a possibility. We do have other kinds of work opportunities that are just various tasks that we need done at App Academy that kind of exist there. The other two major things. So one is that we are working on a part-time course as well. So hoping to launch that kind of before the end of the year. We're trying to accelerate that kind of as soon as we can, so that folks can then just go kind of have a full-time job even and take the course on the side. And then lastly, we're also exploring kind of living stipend options. So there, we do have, I believe, I want to say it's live or will be live within like a week or two with Climb, where Climb lets you, so it's along with the loan that you would take with Climb, there's a living stipend option. Unfortunately, it's not available if you don't take a loan from Climb, but that is at least one living stipend option that we are currently offering or just about to offer.
Thank you.
So, Kush, let's take like a quick little step back, because I bet that a lot of the people on this call right now are either in the beginnings of their journeys, or they're just learning how to code. Maybe they're exploring boot camps. Maybe some of them are actually learning to code self-paced. But I'm wondering what that initial period of like you learning how to code was for you. The differences between, well, I guess you did touch upon it a little bit with like the structured approach, but what sorts of things really helped you succeed in kind of acquiring that skill set? And what would you advise people as they're going through their maybe boot camp exploration process or just learning to code in general?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So a few things that I think hopefully can be helpful tips. So one is that coding is different from many other things that you're learning, where it's not about reading like a ton of books and then not practicing at all. I totally made this mistake where I was like, oh, it's just like history or English. It's not at all. You have to like read some, but then actually just play around with the computer like a fair amount. So that's a big one, where it's like spend as much time or more. Like ideally, it's like more like 75-25 in terms of like literally typing stuff in the terminal or whatever kind of program you're using, versus like reading a book or reading something online or whatever that is. So that's a big one. Another is that like if there's any way to find some sort of like accountability partner, do that. So there are communities online. So App Academy Open is one, Free Code Camp's another. Like there's just communities online where you can find people that are also learning how to code, and just that accountability of like, oh, we're gonna like I'm going to check in at the end of the day with you. Like, we're going to see, what did you build or what did you learn or whatever, like anything like that. Ideally, it's like, we're going to work together on a project, right? We're going to work together and try to build, because then you just don't, this is why we use pair programming. You can't like, I mean, I get distracted just like everybody else, right? You're sitting there, you're doing some work, and then you're like, oh, let's go see what's going on like Facebook or ESPN or whatever, right? It's just like, but you don't do that if somebody's like looking at your same screen, right? If you're like working on a problem with somebody. So there's so much of that like kind of time wasting that goes on, and so much of learning program is just like, you got to focus and like really, like keep that focus on. So that accountability partner, I'd really recommend highly.
So what would that kind of look like in App Academy's, I guess, in-person boot camps? Like what does that structure kind of look like? What can people expect?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we do pair programming fairly similarly, actually, with the in-person and the online. So it's essentially like one piece of code, but like two folks that have the ability to edit it, but one is a driver and one's a navigator. That's a role, and it's like what you would expect, right? So one is like typing, doing the actual typing of like, oh, I'm going to define a function or something, right? And the navigator's the one that's kind of like, oh, take a turn here, do that, okay, at the next, this light, you're going to take a right. And in the same way, applying to code, it's like, okay, let's write a function that loops over these things and then like adds this number to that number, right? So they give that high level direction. The driver is like literally doing the typing, and then every 15-20 minutes you switch off. So and there's a bunch of resources which I'm happy to follow up with online that show like how to do this well. That I recommend, like, if you do try to do this with the accountability buddy, you both read the article and like try to hold yourselves accountable. Like, okay, every 20 minutes we have a timer that just goes off and we switch. And like when the driver's driving, the driver's actually the only one typing, and the navigator is the only one like thinking about, okay, what's going to be next, etc. So this is the same kind of pair programming that's used in the industry, which is why we do it this way. It's shown to be effective. It's like also a great way to stay productive and to learn well.
Yeah, that it definitely seems like super interactive, like hands-on. It seems to be like the constant theme with a lot of these different boot camps is really just you want to go to France if you want to learn French. But what you do, right, like that App Academy does like fairly well, is making sure that you know at least a few couple like words before you go off and try to talk to people in French and you have no idea what you're saying or doing. How does your prep courses really set your students up for success for the curriculum and the actual like very much like difficult and like long process of like learning to code through your program?
Yeah, so the prep course, it really goes through kind of the fundamentals of coding. So it gives you that ability to, even if you walk away right then, you're like, okay, I can write like a basic computer program that can actually do like interesting things, right? So and that again is to expose you to discover like, is this the right thing for you? But also, a key one of the things that you discover very quickly once you start a bootcamp, because most of them do use the pair programming model, is that the closer in ability you are to your partner, the smoother that process is going to be. And one of the things that happens when you do have a little bit, when you have a higher bar, when you are more selective, is that the skill levels are just closer together, and that makes things run smoother, where somebody's not like running ahead and feels like, this other person's slowing me down, and vice versa, where you feel like, I'm slowing this other person down, right? So the prep course, the prep materials, the application process, it's all in service of trying to get folks to be, closer in skill levels when they start, and have like kind of that level playing field as much as possible, right? Obviously people will still be different, but just to get it a little bit, just like reasonably close versus totally far off.
Yeah, and it's also a process of like people going from potentially completely zero domain knowledge and then learning a bunch of things and then ultimately being way prepared for their jobs, right? The job market. Can you talk about some of the companies that some App Academy alumni have ended up at, the success stories that you've kind of seen on that end?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, we place students at like 1,000 tech companies across US. So the top ones are Google, Wayfair, Uber, Facebook, and Persado. So larger tech companies that are hiring more volume. I think we have close to 100 people at Google now out of 3,000 alumni. So they do consistently love to kind of hire from App Academy. It's really it really kind of runs a gamut from small tech companies to large ones. There are a bunch of startups if that's what you're interested in, but we generally try to recommend folks do try to go towards the slightly larger tech companies just because they're a little bit more safer. They have better training usually.
So we also got a couple of questions before the event. So I'll go ahead and like pull up a couple of these. One person, I think it was Michael. Michael might be in this chat actually. Is this the same Michael? Sorry, 1 second. No, Marcus. Okay. Well, Marcus Hayes asks, if he's in New York City, would you recommend, well, obviously at this moment in time, there is the social distancing order taking place, but assuming that everything goes back to normal at one point, would you actually advise him to do the in-person course or do that App Academy online if he is actually in New York City himself?
Yeah, so I think that's a pretty personal choice, but let me talk through some of the like decision points or factors that I think people should take into account when they make that decision, right? So so one is just, it sounds like relatively indifferent to learning in person versus online, so that's great, right? Because that's just initial thing you have to ask yourself, like, am I fine learning online? Because not everybody is, and vice versa, right? Especially in this COVID-19 time, I think like we can kind of ignore it and be like, when things are back to normal. But that said, I think a big piece of it is like, do you feel comfortable going into an in-person classroom with other students during this time? Because I think that's going to put more people in favor of online right now versus in person. So that's obviously a thing. Another is commute distance, right? So like, or not even commute distance, but like commute overall, right? So like, how long is your commute? Because if it's more than an hour, probably do online. What does that commute look like, right? Are you sitting on a train where you can like study for an hour? Because then it's probably, then it makes it much easier, right? Versus, are you like, do you have to stand up because you're like in the middle of the subway line and the thing's packed by the time it gets to you, right? And people are going to be pushing you while you're trying to read a book or whatever. That makes it much harder. So those are the kind of logistical challenges that I would probably weigh out. The last one probably being like, can you save money if you live, like take it online and live where you're living versus do you have to move, closer, to be, closer to the campus or something like that? Because some people do that, right? They're like, I live in Queens, but I'm going to move to like Manhattan for the class, right? And then it's, and then I'd say, save the money, right? Like you use it for the job search, use it to support yourself, use it to invest in yourself. Like don't use it on rent. So that's, again, a personal preference that, after you think about those first couple questions, but I don't think, the online program is very, and I will say this doesn't apply to all online boot camps. We've seen that the hiring rates are as fast as our in-person boot camp. That is not at all the case for most other online boot camps versus their in-person components. So be careful making that decision of like, is the online bootcamp comparable in like placement, job placement, the only thing ultimately that matters versus the in-person bootcamp? And if so, then I think these questions kind of come up. But, yeah.
Now, as far as people getting to prepare for the whole application process at App Academy, or even the course itself, how would you best advise people to kind of take that on? Like, how would they approach that to have the most success in that entire journey?
In the application process, you're saying?
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. So, again, here I'd say, just put in the work. I think that's a really big piece of it. I think talking to alumni and hiring managers can also help. And the reason I say that is just to inform yourself about what this is going to be and where this is going to place you. Because if you can talk to that in interview, that's fantastic. So, and this can just be, finding alumni through the Career Karma network. There's just a bunch of people on there that are alumni, that are hiring managers, et cetera. So it doesn't have to be like go cold on LinkedIn or whatever. That's one of the great things about Career Karma, right? So, so that's one. But yeah, I really say, yeah, just put in the time. Really see it as like, it's not an arbitrary goal of like, you have to study this random stuff to be able to pass this test or something. It's like, can you learn the basics of programming? Like, focus on that. It's the same thing we tell students kind of when they're in the class. There's no point in cheating. There's no like, you're not going to get an A or a B or a C or something. It's like it's a binary thing, right? You get a job or you don't. You get in or you don't. Like, and that really is based on the thing of like, do you know programming or do you not, right? You're only cheating yourself if you try to take a shortcut. If you try, right? So just focus on putting in the work until you understand it. And it may take you longer. That's fine. As I mentioned, find resources, ask for help, like try to find accountability buddies, So, and make that process, as easy as possible. But at the end of the day, I think it's just put in the work.
Now, what do you guys also look for in your interviews as you kind of, find the right candidates versus the ones that you feel need a little bit more time or more preparation?
Yeah, so that's a pretty in terms of the technical side of things, we have kind of a rubric, and a lot of that comes down to can you communicate effectively? Are you thinking through are you approaching the problem in a way where it shows that you do know how to think through a programming problem, right? So and that comes from understanding the how to program and how to debug a program, how to just approach kind of designing it in the first place. So that's kind of what we look for.
How would you advise people to prepare for that type of interview?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I'd say practice a lot of the website. A lot of the problems on the sites. Code Wars, that's a really good place to look. We recommend that for a lot of people. Let's see, a test first Ruby, I feel is really good. So that gives you kind of feedback. It's kind of so what it does is it in programming, there's this concept of having like tests that your program passes in a sense. So you can see if the program is correct, right? So in this case, there are all these tests that are written for you, and that you have to write the program that kind of makes those tests pass. So it gives you very instant feedback of like, okay, does the program work or not, right? Does it like meet the goals that are specified by these tests or not? So that one, I think it's kind of a weird experience, and it will take some time to figure out. You probably want to find somebody else to help you figure it out, because it's not at all straightforward in the beginning. I would definitely recommend starting out with the prep work and other materials like that before jumping into that. But I think that's a great way to like master the concepts, right? And those code wars problems, great way to master those concepts and make sure, okay, if you mix it up and ask the question this way, I can still answer it. I still understand fundamentally what's happening.
Yeah, and as the founder of App Academy, you've kind of seen this. You've kind of iterated on your process, and over time, just gotten a little bit better each time with like being able to be effective at educating these future software engineers, the coders. Do you mind talking about where you see App Academy kind of going, how you've learned over the years, like what's been working with this kind of educational approach.
Mhm. Yeah. So, I'd say they're probably kind of two major axes along which I see the future of App Academy. So one is along the line of just like continuing to break down different barriers that exist to learning how to code. So we started out with the income share agreement that I think really opened up access to a lot of folks that didn't have the 15, 20, 25,000, $30,000 to go to a boot camp, right? So that was a big one. I think online on top of that, really again, gives access to folks that can't afford to live in San Francisco or New York without rent, or sorry, without a salary for 6-9 months plus, right? Part-time, I think, is going to be another way that we tackle that, and international after that. But the other kind of access that I think might even be more interesting for folks is that we're in the process of developing continuing education courses so that we can help our alumni grow in their careers. We do not at all see App Academy as like, okay, we just got you that first job. Part of the reason we have that high bar, part of the brand that we're building is we want to help you to get to that engineering manager, director of engineering, VP of engineering, right, in your career. So, and part of that's just the education and that can help get you there, and you can do it on your own, and people have, but we can help you get there, and we want to be better at doing that so that an even higher percentage of students are jumping into those leadership positions in technology. So that's where we're kind of investing some time and resources.
Yeah, it sounds like there's definitely been an emphasis on kind of the alumni that come out of App Academy. Do you mind talking a little bit about the network that you guys have built, like how people that have graduated kind of interact with the community? Do they stick around? Do they kind of just like graduate and they're off? Like what does that look like?
Yeah, so there are several different ways that we have the alumni kind of brought back, to kind of into the App Academy community as much as possible. So one is a Slack. We have a Slack with all the alumni. People, I was just, they're helping each other across cohorts, right? So somebody from the 2016 cohort will be helping somebody from the 2013 cohort on, this random bug they had or something, right? So it's a free resource that continues for many years after that you can get help on like software engineering things, hiring things is a big kind of thing there of like, hey, can you recommend me into your company or whatever, right? So that kind of thing happens. We when, in the pre-COVID-19 times and then post-COVID-19 times, we have in-person events where we just bring people back, where we bring like hundreds of alumni back, just to have a mixture for like all of them, right? So they can just meet each other and make that connection tighter. So, and then we have, there's other kind of like other like more ad hoc activities that we do. So whether they're like podcasts that we do with certain alumni, as you folks are probably aware, one of the Career Karma founders is an App Academy alum. So, he's super helpful to us and brings us back and helps us integrate into with the Career Karma community. So, he's not the only successful kind of startup founder out there. There are folks that have raised $50 million, $100 million, right? So that are App Academy alumni. So there are a lot of really successful kind of App Academy alumni that have also come back and like given back in meaningful ways, given speeches, help like hired a bunch of people at our company, all sorts of things. So, yeah.
So as a CEO of App Academy, do you mind just sharing also some of your like favorite points along this whole journey? I'm kind of curious to see like what sorts of things kind of really have lit you up over the past couple of years.
Yeah. So let's see. So for me, it's probably the launch of the App Academy Open was a pretty big thing. Like that, it took some work and took some convincing to the even people internally were like, you crazy? You want to like release the whole curriculum for free? Like, why would anybody take App Academy? So I think fortunately it's been proven out that there's still value to taking App Academy, and that's so that to be honest, for me, still a big, pretty standout thing. Actually launching the online course and reaching those folks that are across the U.S., across the world. Really, we had one of our best students was from Russia, right? He, like stayed up in the middle of the night, took the course. Fantastic student, right? So seeing that ability to like really reach people wherever they are, that was pretty awesome for me. yeah, then and then lastly, it's just, to be honest, just a bunch of stories of folks that when they finally get that job, or they're working so hard, and there's somebody who had like was going through the class. His wife was pregnant. He like didn't have enough money for rent the next month, so he was like, "I'm graduating this day. I have to get a job like in 30 days, or like I'm just up shit's creek." And he applied to like 1,000 jobs in those 30 days. Got a job, like got several job offers, but like got one that he was excited about. Took it, like stuff like that, where people just like do just crazy stuff where you're like, I didn't even know that you could do that. Like so I mean, a lot of App Academy is teaching people that they can do things that they didn't necessarily believe were possible as quickly as they could. Sometimes often, I mean, to be honest, often with the 3,000 students, I get taught the same thing, where it's like, well, you can do that. Like that's the thing you can do. Like you can get a job that quickly. You can get a job for $200,000 after you graduate. It doesn't have to be like 100,000. What like what? So just all these, and that $225,000 offer that came like a week ago in the middle of COVID-19, right? So like these kinds of crazy things happen where I'm like, wow, that's pretty cool. So yeah.
Yeah, no, that is really impressive, and very cool. I think that, sorry, that was just a loss of train of thought right there. But I actually also, because it kind of sounds really like dream-like, like all of these people are doing all of these wonderful things and doing it really fast, but the reality of it when you're kind of in the grind, it's not very pretty. It is like a big struggle. It's kind of like a big hurdle. You'll begin doubting yourself a lot. Do you have any, like, since we are closing off this event pretty like fairly soon, do you have any, I guess, final words for people going through this journey and embarking on learning and acquiring a very hard skill set to acquire? What are certain things that you feel they should keep top of mind?
Yeah. So, I'd say that it's there's one thing that comes back to me often, especially as relating to App Academy and boot camps in general, which is that like people often like really overestimate what they can do in a day and really underestimate what they can do in a year. And I've just seen that play out so many times of like, it's just that incremental, like consistent effort. And it applies, I mean, not just to coding, obviously, but like so many things in your life, right? Where it's just that there's no, just that consistent effort and you can totally change your life inside that year. And we've done it many times. Several other boot camps have done it too. So it's just that longer term goal, having that longer term goal and that faith that like that consistent effort is going to get you to that goal, and then just executing on it. So there's a bunch of structure and support and accountability and whatever that can help you get there, but ultimately that's like what it boils down to, is that kind of like long-term vision translated into like day-to-day steps.
Yeah, that's a very strong foot to kind of close this off on. But before I ask you my last question, where can people find you?
Yeah, so I'm on Career Karma. So I don't. Do you folks have like a messaging feature, or what's about? Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure. Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So we have the discussion boards. Everyone here, feel free to use that as a resource. We have a ton of bootcamp staff, CEOs, founders, alumni, and students as well that you can all interact with via discussion boards. We also have squads within the mobile app. This is definitely a resource that you all can lean on as you progress in your journey. So definitely take a look at those. Kush actually answered a handful of questions before the event, so feel free to check that out. And if you have any other questions, like tag him, drop some comments in some of his posts, just submit questions. So definitely check those out. So Kush, for my final question, this question is kind of geared towards the audience with us tonight, not just to listen to what you said, but to actually implement some of the insights that you've shared with us tonight. What would you say is the one thing that people can do this week that'll help them progress towards their goal of breaking into tech?
Yeah. So, I think that one thing that I found very valuable, and it sounded like a total bunch of like hooey to me until I like actually did it. But I highly recommend you take it with a just like try it and see if it works for you, is like creating that, like just write down what do you want your life to be like in a year, or whatever that goal post is for you, of like, this is, you know, when I see my life transform, like I'm a software engineer, but then also like, these are the other changes in my life that it helps me make, right? Because having that written down, like being able to go back to that, having that you just in your head, that can help you just like stay consistently moving towards that long-term target when things get hard, right? So and you'll hear this, right? This comes in different forms, like people are like, do a vision board, do that, but like just literally writing down like, this is the vision, this like it helps me like take care of my mom, like it helps me put my kid, you know, through college, whatever it is, right? Like just write, like just take the time to like the 5-10 minutes to write it down, and then yeah, just, you know, pin it up, put it, you know, whatever, paste it on your background, whatever it is, right? But having a calendar reminder, so it gets sent to you like every month or so, every week it, you know, sends you an email that just reminds you of that or something, right? So you know, for me, I found that very powerful. I came to that pretty late. Like I only discovered that kind of thing like a few years ago, but I found it very powerful to also be like, wait, when I actually think about what's actually important in my life, it's also just clarifying for like what's actually important and what's not important. And like, okay, I want to prioritize these things because it gets me to this thing that I think is important in my life, or this important thing that's going to be a change in my life. So
Yeah, that's certainly like really actionable, like helpful advice, because your thoughts sometimes they come and go and they seem like they're new ones, but really it's really just kind of like loops of the same thoughts over and over again. But the way to make those thoughts actionable is to really have them out somewhere where you can like physically see them, share it with other people so they can know what you're all about, know what you're trying to get after, so they can find opportunities to be able to help you. And so we actually have a prompt that you all can definitely go ahead and utilize. We call it the 2020 vision. So we actually prompt you guys to think about where you guys have been over the last 10 years, where you currently are, and where you want to be in the next 10 years. And it's a really great warm up just to start thinking about like, over this amount of time, like this is how far I've gotten, and I have so much more that I want to do. And what does that kind of look like for me? And the last question to that prompt will be, how can the Career Karma community help? Because there are so many unique stories within each one of you, and each one of you has something wonderful and valuable to offer the world. Share your stories, let people know what you're all about, and tag me, tag Kush. Let us know like what that vision really is, and we can try to help you, you know, tackle it. So Kush, thank you so much for spending some time with us tonight. And all of you that are in the audience, appreciate you all spending some time with us as well. Remember that this has been 1 hour that you've invested towards your goals. So I always commend each and every one of you for doing that and kind of investing that time and progressing. So write out those visions, take Kush's insights and actually implement them in your lives, and let them know, because this is also kind of like a form of networking, right? Like he would love to see that the words that he's been able to share actually had an impact on somebody's life. Like that is one of the best feelings. So again, Kush, thank you so much for coming to join us tonight.
yeah, no, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day. I have a lot of respect for folks that are looking to make a change in their lives and actually like taking the time to do it, joining community like Career Karma that can hold you accountable, support you in this. So, well, yeah. So, thank you, folks, and yeah, please follow me, message me. I may be a little bit slow, but I'll try to be, you know, as quick as possible in kind of responding. So, thank you.
All right. That concludes tonight's event. Again, thank you all for joining us, and until next time, everyone, have a good night.
Good night.